learned about you when I listened to your podcast and you had Katarina from the ashram
Mm,
as your
mm,
guest. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. I was so at the time I was looking for retreat centers to kind of get in there and work with them, and I was thinking of trying to find a way to, I don't know, do something at the ashram. And so I was listening to the podcast just to get to know more about her. And then I found you, and I learned that you were kind of like, were you like her protege or her apprentice or something to that?
I was a retreat leader there. Yeah, so I led retreats for
Okay.
her. Yeah. I worked there for 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's
that's a
still
long
my
time.
heart still she still has a piece of that heart there. So it was a
Yeah.
major transition for me moving. That was my entry point into retreats. So that was a whole world opening up, 20 years ago. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful concept, like the space and the eating and the lifestyle and the nature. Well, and then that led me to, is it Aroha? How do
Yeah.
you say it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you spent some time in Mexico, right? So the
I'm in
Spanish
Mexico.
accent, you're in Mexico. Okay, cool. There you go. So yeah, the Spanish accent is perfect. It's a Te Reo Maori word, so the native culture of New Zealand, but it actually pronounces very similar to a Spanish word, aroha. Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
And what does it mean again?
I worked with a Maori elder here. Her name's Ruth Makuini, and amazing, incredible, beautiful soul. And she really looked at this word, which is very central. So it's the same word. So for Americans, we know the word aloha from the island culture of Hawaii, and down here, of course, it's the same culture through the islands of the Pacific, and so Aroha is aloha, just a slightly different dialect, and
Oh,
similar to the depth of meaning that aloha has. Um, the Maori had a world view that basically the universe was animated by love. That Aroha was this like binding force of that held everything together. So not only are you and I animated by love ultimately, like our true nature is love, but the plants and the entire universe really is kind of bound by this unseen force of love. And so I really loved that. But and I reached out to this woman, Ruth, and she was just so giving of her time and so giving of her insights. And I I had mentioned that I just love the word, and I was writing, opening this retreat center, and she's like, "Yeah, great, go. It's a perfect word for a retreat center. Like you should use it." And I was really hesitant because it was just such a prominent word. It was like calling a retreat center love. It just seemed too big and too close, and also not my culture. So I was really just sensitive and aware of that whole thing. And she really was just like, oh, how can there be too much love? Like, you can't spread this kind of message too far and too wide. And so but we still worked with it, and she ended up separating, just like you would with a Latin word. She separated the words out, and there are several words within the word aroha, but aro means attention or focus, and then ha is the breath, so it's ha, and it also is like life force, and so attention to life. And then I had
mm.
this incredible moment where I met this Te scholar. This was after we'd already named the business, and I just gave him my card. I was interested in connecting with him. He was a scholar of the Maori language, and he looked at it and he goes, I would translate that as in the presence of divine breath. And I was just like, my skin tingled, and it was like, wow, incredible. So in the presence of divine breath, here we are.
I love that. And I saw that on your website that there are so many breakdowns of the
Yeah,
whole,
yeah.
and I really liked that. I also
Mm.
like that what the elder told you, that can there really be too much love? Like instead of saying, no, you can't use it because you're not from this, right? I had a friend of mine, Eric, who he has a brand called Shamanic Tonic, and he He makes this amazing ceremonial cacao. But, he's a white dude from the States. And
Yeah.
we had this conversation where he went to Mexico and he had a ceremony with one of the Mayan shamans. And he was like, I feel like I want to share this, but, this is not my heritage. This is not my lineage. And the shaman told him, if it's calling you, go
Mm,
with it, go do it. And
mm,
it just offers a different perspective of, when your intentions are in the right place and when you are aligned with love and you are aligned with the purpose of sharing that, it's like just do it. Just follow the love.
yeah, absolutely. I even think in terms of, say, yoga. It's like, I come from the States, of course, and yoga has been turned into all sorts of things. It's like hip hop yoga and this and that and whatever. And I get that some people are really put off by that or turned off or feel, that it's just wrong, that it's morally wrong to do that to someone else's practice. And I get that, but I also think so many people come into these practices, which can be really esoteric and really kind of daunting, like if that shamanic experience was one that involved plant medicine, for example, or even just shamanism flat out, without plant medicine, you know, the big dose of some of this stuff to somebody who's not experienced or exposed to these things can just be too much. It can just be too scary and and it can put people off. And so I find all of these kind of aberrations of culture, again, if they, like you said, if they're respectful, or at least don't have malintent, because I think the respect is something that is perceived, right? Like the perceiver decides what's respectful and what's not. And so I think, if you kind of just connect with the person, is like, is your intention malicious? And if yes, fine, fair enough, not great. But if your intention is just like whatever, clean, non-malicious, then great. Try some hip hop yoga and see if that's what pulls you in, and do your thing. Like dance out your warrior twos, and like like until maybe
Mm,
that pulls you into something else, and then maybe you have
yeah.
a moment there, and then yeah, and so I'm quite open personally to humans creating all the magic. Yeah.
And meeting people where they are, because maybe where that person is right now, it's like they're attracted to hip hop yoga. But like you said,
Mm.
as they go deeper, they're like, what's this? Well, what's behind this part? And then they'll find the, as deep as they want to go into it, the
Yeah,
roots of it
exactly.
all.
Mm.
So, okay, back to the podcast. So when I found you and I was like, who is this guy? And so I went to your website and the space is just like, just thinking about it, my hair is standing up. I I love spaces that you can immediately feel intention, mindfulness, love, like the details, the views, the materials, all of it. It's really beautiful. And then I was reading about how, you wanted to create this space and also teach people about sustainability and permaculture. Um, and that just like took it over the top for me. So how did this all begin? Like how did Aroha come into existence?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the real jumping off point for me was the ashram, because I went from corporate America to wellness, and the ashram's an incredible place, and it's like one of the founding retreat centers in the States. Like if you know Katerina was a partner, and her partner, who was the founder, the original founder, was Anne Marie Benstrom. She's passed away now, but these ladies, like they met Bikram Chowdhury of Bikram Yoga. They like invited him to the States and like met him at the port and like picked him up for the first time he arrived in the States, and then like took him up to the ashram, and he like taught hot yoga for the first time, and like, so there's just so many stories like that where, because they've been around for so long and they were there before, there was so much, they just really had a part in the wellness culture of the States. And so I was getting to learn from these two legends, and I still really appreciate them. But the other place that I would say was really pivotal for me was Esalen, the Esalen Institute in Big Sur. I went up there a couple of times, lived and worked there for a little bit, and also really that's where I learned permaculture. So studied permaculture and just saw a little bit more of a community where people were living together and working together, and what do our spiritual practices look like when we actually live together on the same piece of land, and when we
Mm.
have to take the trash out and deal with this and deal with that, and like everything gets a little more real,
Yeah.
and how do we deal with disagreements, and I saw at Esalen, they would use Gestalt, which was a therapy founded really there by Fritz Perls, and they would use it with us in departments. So when I was working in the garden once a week, we would all get together in circle, and it was just a time to check in. And then there was a facilitator, a Gestalt facilitator there doing therapy with us. And it was mind blowing. I'd never seen anything close to that in any kind of workplace I'd been in. And so that was really eye opening. And those two were kind of really cornerstones to my early learnings. And then the doors kind of opened. There was a moment where I was like kind of interested in the physical. It's like, oh, what about the physical body, and becoming, a physical therapist and kind of getting into the organism. But then I just kind of turned towards the internal, and I started, studying with people like Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle, and seeking out experiences with various teachers, and through retreats as well. Doing things like Vipassana, and just exploring. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm like I want to taste every single version of everything. So I've just spent a lot of time over the years just trying different things and seeing what really lands for me, and seeing when the doors open and when they close, and then just taking all of that and synthesizing it and pulling it together into this place, Aroha, where I am now. And and yeah, we run signature retreats pretty much every week of the year, and we also invite teachers to come and teach with us. Those can be really powerful too, and people can go a little deeper into different topics and subjects if they're interested in them. And yeah, this place, if you had been to Esalen and spent some time, and you'd been to the ashram and spent some time, and then you came here, you'd be like, oh, I see it. Like it's like the essence of those places are both here, and then there are these layers that we've continued on with. And I would say one of the real gifts, and this wasn't obvious in the beginning, but my business partner and I, we knew we wanted to create something that that was taking a step forward, particularly in sustainability,
Hmm.
particularly in the way that it provided for the basic needs of a human. And we didn't know exactly what that looked like in the early days, but we thought we would be able to buy something like, and renovate it and make it fit our purpose. And as we started to kind of go down this rabbit hole of what is sustainability, and how do you even quantify what that word means? What are you actually aiming for in terms of a design, and, what sort of structures and measures will be in place in order to know if you were successful in trying to do something like that. And so as we went down that rabbit hole, we just realized it's just so much easier to build from scratch. And both of us were reluctant, and we didn't really want to do it because it was like, that's going to take years and so much effort. But we did it. And so we ended up finding this piece of land down here, and I spent, a solid 3 years just absolutely full time in development and design and build, and then we opened. So yeah, that was 10
Wow,
years ago. Mm,
that's amazing. I'm
yeah.
just thinking, yeah, building a space from nothing seems a little bit like a daunting task. But like
Yeah.
you said, it does make sense that if you really want to have control, for a lack of a better word, mindful control of
Yeah.
how things are built, then you really have to, I mean, from the beginning of how things are moved, where it's planted, like where it is, what it's facing, and the plumbing, everything.
Oh
If there's
man, the
plumbing.
plumbing. Don't get me started. I
Yeah.
mean, I learned so much, and I really felt so out of my depth because I'm not a builder. I'm not, not somebody who develops properties. So it was my first time building something. And of course, you just learn a lot. You're just in the deep end. And my partner really trusted me to make decisions that would at least have clear intention. And so we did. Yeah, it was a wild process. I could save a lot of time and a lot of worry and probably a lot of money if I did it again. Second time would be much better. But we got there, and we worked really hard, and we got to a place that is, I mean, it does what we thought it would do, and it really ticks so many boxes. Yeah,
It's really beautiful.
yeah.
And why? So you said, I always have like so many questions floating around in my head. Pick one. Okay, this one. So you said that if you would do it again, you would do some things differently. What are those things that you would do differently? Or what did you learn in the
Probably
process?
the largest. I mean, well, number one is that if you're designing something, if it's your house, if it's whatever, even I think if you're designing a product or something, I just think when you're designing, there's this infinite possibilities of areas that you can put your time and attention, and a finite amount of attention and time. And so if you try to become an expert at everything and you try to really care about everything, you just like burn yourself out. So for example, I spent, an entire day looking at door handles. It's like, if you really care about door handles, great, go ahead. Like, I mean, I remember like touching the door handles and feeling the feel in my hand, and, the
Yeah.
sound and the mechanism. And it was like, I was like, and they were all laid out on the table, and you're just like door handle, door handle. And looking back on it, it's like, does that really, for me personally, like, that just wasn't very high on my list of like essential qualities. Yeah, sure, we touched door handles a lot, and I was there with like the people who cared about door handles, so it was an interesting experience, but I had limited time, and I was trying to do that with pretty much everything. And I just think it's good to be aware of what you really feel is essential, because also you've got like door handle experts, so they'd be great at just choosing a
Mhm.
door handle, and you could just trust them and be like, "Yep, you choose, go for it." Done. Move on with your day and go do something else. So there were just, I would say, just honing my attention and really getting clear on like what very clearly affects the North Star of what I'm trying to achieve. If I know the experience, hopefully, if you're building something, you know what you want this thing to do. And then just continually asking the question, okay, and how does this have to do with how this thing needs to perform and function? And, if it doesn't seem very important, just like let it go. So that was a big thing. I think I just could have saved a lot of time there. And then in terms of how this place, I'm mixed. I'm mixed on this one, but it's definitely a biggie that comes up. So Aroha is, you know, on the high end, I would say, of retreat experiences in terms of cost and experience and luxury. And I had had enough experiences where I was sharing space, where I was not in luxurious experiences, where I was sharing a room with somebody and sharing a bathroom, and I just found so much value in that, in the community, in the shoes off, feet on the ground, just kind of salt of the earth experiences, where no matter who you were being invited to take your mask off, take your diamonds off, take your blah. Yeah. The ashram is like that. The ashram, like I was, it was like Uma Thurman was one of our clients, and like the list goes on and on. Like we just had like A-list people coming through, and almost everybody was quite wealthy, I would say, because it was kind of an expensive experience. But the ashram is not a luxurious place. We had people sharing rooms, so two beds in one room, that had never met each other every week. And you would watch them arrive because they'd heard about the ashram, and they'd heard the lore and the legend and the thing, and you know, that Oprah had been there and all these kind of things, and they show up, and it's like you're arriving at like your grandmother's house. This old kind of beautiful, clean, lovely, lovely place, but it's just older. It's just not modern luxury. And they would arrive and you could just see, and then you'd walk them into their rooms and they would see the two beds, and you would just kind of almost like you could see the cogs of the wheel over and over again of these people going like, wait a minute, like, is this really what I'm in for? And then, so it's always uncomfortable up front. And I think that's probably true for most of us. Like if I'd say for the vast majority of us, if you could choose your own private room and your own private bathroom, or you could have a shared experience, which would you choose? Most of us would choose a bit of privacy for sleep and everything. But when you don't have that choice, you end up creating really powerful relationships and friendships, and you would see it week after week that by day 3 or 4 the group just starts bonding and they're closer and closer and closer and closer, and you don't see that in luxury spaces.
Mm.
I've had the opposite end of experiences where I've been to retreat centers that were very luxurious, and everything is personal, one-on-one, private. So it's like, yeah, you can do yoga with your private yoga teacher. Yeah, you can go get this, and it's one-on-one, one-on-one, one-on-one. And when you go and have dinner, or when you go and have breakfast at these nice places, you sit at your own table and by yourself, or maybe you're with your partner or whatever, and you have your one waiter that comes over. So it's just this very kind of separate
Mm.
experience, which can be great. But I just think the community and the connection, and that unmasking, and that thing that we have with our closest family and friends, like we want more of that, and any way that we can get it, especially these days where we are increasingly lonely and separate. So
Yeah.
I saw that happening. Long story short, to come all the way back around to it, Aroha is it's private rooms, but it's shared ablution areas or shared bathrooms. And so you're on this like high end where you're like winning Condé Nast awards, and yet people are sharing bathrooms. So it's a little bit like, for a lot of the people that come here, it's untenable for some people. They can't. I would guess, I don't know, maybe 10% of people who want to come to Aroha just can't get over it. Can't internally get over the idea that they would share a bathroom. And so I think potentially I would rather include that 10%. I would rather find a way to kind of like bring them in, because I think everybody needs wellness, and a lot of people just may not ever get to some of these really beautiful experiences because they're not refined enough for them, because
Mm.
something is turning them off. And so I actually think that we could just provide en suites. That would be one change that I think I would make. And because I think we get them into community no matter what, because we're all sitting at the same table and we're all doing our classes together and we're all going for walks together. So I still think I get the community. So, and the other side of me, the other side of me kind of goes, and is almost like it's like a natural filter, because we get such incredible groups of humans here and they're all willing to dive in, and so maybe there's something in that is part of the magic. So it's all
Yeah.
built in. I'm not changing it anytime soon. So
I think that, I mean, I've noticed from all the people that I've spoken to, and even in my own experience, my favorite part about the retreat is the community and the people that you meet, especially
yeah.
because a lot of the time you're doing really deep work there, or there's some kind of transformation happening. And even with people that you love, that you cherish, like your family, friends that you've had for a very long time, they may not understand what you went through, like the people that you went through it with. And so
Mhm.
being able to share that is so powerful. And sometimes, a lot of these things that we do on retreat, like diving in, or maybe not diving in, but like slowly going into an icy lake for an ice bath, is not, I mean, there's some people out there who might say, "Oh yeah, I want to do that." But the majority of people are like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. That's uncomfortable. I don't want to feel that." But they do it, or they find themselves in a position where they're getting in the icy water, and then when they come out, it's like, "Oh, I'm so glad I did that." But you have to put people in that discomfort. get them out of their comfort zone to do the things that they don't want to do, like bunk with someone, share a bathroom. I don't want to share a bathroom, by the way. I'm just going to be honest. But but I would do it to go
Okay.
to Aroha. I would definitely do it. It's worth it for me. And like you said, it's a great filter because if you really can't wrap your head around it and you're just too closed off about it, then maybe you're not ready for an experience like that.
Yeah. 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 And other changes, I mean, really, Aroha has worked out really well. I mean, you can walk around any place that you've ever designed and you're like, I remember that moment and should have changed that. There's all the details. But in general, the place evolves and it's nice to feel the community here and actually to realize, I mean, I, people probably may think that, these things just kind of pop out and people just have this clear vision and it just happens. You really are like, for me, the experience was like walking into a fog. Like I knew what I wanted, I knew what my heart wanted, and maybe the fog comes from just like disbelief and kind of it's like you can dream something and it's like, yeah, this is the dream, and then it's like, is that even possible? And so these days I feel really lucky after 10 years of running it to really be able to bask in the fact that it's like, wow, it's here and it works and it is what it is and it is what I hoped it would be. It's way more than I hoped it would be. And so it's, yeah, I feel really blessed in that. And I guess if you're out there and you're looking at the fog and it seems daunting and impossible and your mind just can't really fathom how it would all work, just keep walking into the fog. Yeah, it opens up. Yeah, just piece by
Okay.
piece, it seems to just open up in front of you. Mm,
That sounds very scary, but also great advice
mm,
just to walk into it.
mm.
So you dropped a little thing there that I wanted to mention later, which is congratulations for getting the Condé Nast Reader's Choice
Oh yeah,
Award for
yeah.
2024. Yeah! Yay!
Yay,
This
yay,
thing has a
awards.
clap. Wait a minute. This thing has a clap. Can we try it? It might be really loud.
Let's do it.
Let me put it.
Oh, I don't hear
Did
it.
you?
Only you got to hear it.
Oh,
I'm
well.
still, I'm excited.
It's just like an audience clapping.
Yeah.
Wow. How many awards is this that I mean, this place that you built has made over 40 something awards?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we've got, that's number 9 or 10 from Condé Nast. And then, we actually we just got another 5, recently
Wow.
for all sorts of things. So momentum gosh, that's another thing that tripped me out is that, like a restaurant. So imagine a restaurant in your local community, or here's what I noticed, like a brand new restaurant's being built out. Kind of everyone in town is like, ooh, what's that? Oh God, it's going to be Thai fusion. Oh my God, they've got a chef from blah, blah, blah. Oh, wow, look, it looks really beautiful in there. Oh, the lighting is really nice. Oh my gosh, da, da, da. Yeah, they're like super excited. As soon as that restaurant opens, it's full. You know what I mean? Because it's like the beautiful, epic restaurant with the amazing chef and blah, blah, blah. I thought it would be the same for retreats. I reckon it's much more like you're starting, and this is not we are not a religion, like we are not a cult. We're like we're very much like non-dogmatic in everything we do. But I think it's almost a little bit more like convincing somebody. It's like people go to their retreat center or people do their thing. Like if you're into Vipassana, you go to Vipassana. And it takes a lot to get somebody to do something other than Vipassana if that's what their thing is, right? And so I was very surprised that Aroha has been a slow and steady um, I don't know, developer of momentum. It probably took 2 years to kind of break even and get into the positive in terms of financials. And that was surprising to me because I knew we were building something that was like, I, over the top. Like, I mean, Aroha is like, it's the Cadillac of retreat centers. It's like absolutely incredible in every way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this thing is get like, this is going to go crazy. Like everybody's going to be like knocking down our door. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It really tripped me out. Yeah. But
Hmm.
now we're feeling it. Now it's like, okay, cool. We're good. But 10 years in, so that's a trip.
But it didn't take 10 years. It took three, right?
No.
Like, did
And
it
it took
take
like two
three?
to get into the positive. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're winning. That was another thing for me. Like we won awards right away. Like we were on Condé Nast Gold list right away. And so people were sending like the media and the press were kind of on it, and they would send people, and they would come and have experiences, and everybody was having great experiences. And there you are getting mentioned in Vogue and getting mentioned in this and that, and all the big publications. And it has an effect, but I think they say, you hear this anyways in marketing, that people need to be touched multiple times by something. It's not like just because you read it once you end up booking, or most people don't. And I really felt that it took some time to build it. We're also in the middle of the Southern Alps of New Zealand, so we're not right next
Yeah.
to LA like the ashram. So you really
Hmm.
have to want to come here, which could be part of it.
That was my next question. Remember when I was like picking, like, what made you choose New Zealand other than it's beautiful, breathtaking?
Yeah. I think if I zoom out a little bit, this wasn't necessarily part of the conversation in the beginning, but my business partner and I, Chris, we were both at a phase in our lives. We're both American, and I just think we saw the cracks. We saw some cracks in the wall of the U.S., and we were both kind of really open to somewhere else. So that was the kind of the bedrock of it. Was we both love traveling. We both, we were in Europe when Aroha was born as a partnership, and so we were very open to other cultures and other ways of living. And he had a CFO that was Kiwi, and he and I both had heard of New Zealand. Neither one of us had ever been here, and it was his idea. He was like, "Hey, what do you think about New Zealand?" And basically, I'd seen it in brochures, and that was about as much as I knew about New Zealand. And yeah, he was the first one to come down, and he just loved it. He came back raving, actually, and I did too. And I knew that we both knew that there was, if you want to create a successful business, be close to, if not immersed in, your the largest population you can find for your product. Either that, or be in a place where nothing like you exists and you're only serving the local population. But for us, we were serving an international population, and so we're competing on an international level, and yet we've put ourselves a bit far away. So my local town of Glenorchy is 300 people, and my nearest town after that is Queenstown. So that's where the international airport comes in. So everybody arrives in Queenstown, and that's about 40 minutes away, and that's about 30,000. So quite small communities. So almost everybody flies in. But once you get here, it's, another world. You can
Yeah.
see in the way that it photographs and everything that you're really in a special place and World Heritage. So, but I think from a business standpoint, we knew that we weren't just going for dollars. We weren't just going for big numbers and turnover. And it wasn't so much about that. It was about creating an impactful and potent experience. So we were happy, basically, to bite that bullet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never been to New Zealand. Both my husband and I, we really want to go. I don't know if you've ever seen that show. I don't even remember what programming. Maybe it was Netflix, Extraordinary Homes or something like that.
No.
It's people who design these incredible structures, usually in nature, in the middle of nowhere. And there was this one house in New Zealand, and I was just like, we live there. We are moving.
Honey, pack the
Yes, we are
car.
going. It's happening.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you don't know anybody over there. I'm like, I don't care. We're gonna do it. So I get that feeling of just wanting to be in that space, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And we just, I mean, so Aroha was born in 2010 as a partnership, that kind of he and I getting together and him going, yep, let's do this together. And I said, yep. And so 2009 was the financial crisis. And so we were just kind of coming out of that, and the world was in just a little bit of a wobbly moment there for sure. And I think that really had an impact on both of us. We both kind of, because if you have the opportunity to create a retreat center anywhere, where do you put it? It's like a great question.
Yeah.
Any of us could kind of ponder that. It's like, oh wow, anywhere? Like, oh gosh, what do we, where do we start? And so we were at that place, and we kind of just quickly assessed a few things. One being, it was like, did we want to go into countries that might be destabilized if financial problems continued? It was like, oh, or do we want to be in cultures where there's a lot of corruption and we're dealing with all sorts of like kind of backhanding and doing all of that? And we both kind of went like, oh. And so we ended up, New Zealand is like one of the most honest, clean. It's like, it's just such a lovely country from a cultural standpoint in the way that it runs. It's just really well run. And so I didn't even know that before I moved here, and now living here. Like as an American, you feel kind of shisty in a culture like this. In America, if you like maybe didn't have to pay tax on this or didn't have to do this or didn't have to do that, you kind of like, like our culture just kind of like just naturally kind of does this thing where we kind of get it done. Mexico even more, right? It's like you're just getting it done and you're like kind of doing it. And New Zealand is not like that at all. Like the whole culture really holds the rule of law as like sacrosanct, and individuals would kind of hold each other to that. And so it's really nice once you get used to it. You're like, oh yeah, there are rules and we follow rules, and that's the way it is. So
What about the culture? Like, how do you, other than the name, integrate the, is it Maori? Maori.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's on
If
the
you
A.
really they say or I had a Maori person tell me like it's kind of like moldy, Maori,
Oh,
Maori. It's like a
Maori.
slightly yeah. Not quite
Yeah?
moldy, but it's Maori. Yeah,
Maori.
yeah. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Cool.
language in and of itself. And to be fair, the Maori from the north sound slightly different to those in the south, and there's like dialect, like subtle differences to the accent across the country, and the culture is very well blended with New Zealanders. So, you know, a lot of people, the word whakapapa means like your ancestry. So they whakapapa Maori means that you have Maori ancestry, and people like you, look like you and I, would could very well have Maori ancestry in New Zealand. So there's the full range from very much Polynesian in terms of look all the way through to yeah, mixed.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a
And do
beautiful
they
culture.
have
It's
like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say New Zealand has done, I think, for countries where there has been colonial involvement, right? So,
Mm.
Europeans, particularly from the UK, came over and engaged with the Maori people. But the Maori they were fierce warriors, and they were, I would say, good negotiators. And so they actually have created a relationship uh, with the Europeans where they have a lot of rights that don't exist, for example, in Australia and don't exist in the United States, where those native cultures were really badly kind of decimated, really, and restricted and stripped of rights. The Maori have like here we have the native iwi or tribe in this area are known as Naitahu. And Naitahu owns some of the most prominent businesses in this area and are very much involved in everything from the waterways through to tourism. And so it's very different. It's nice to see. It's not perfect. Of course, there's an immense history there, and there is a sense of colonization for many, but having come from the States and having seen, I grew up in New Mexico, so I saw, Indian reservations, and I really was kind of close to what was left of the Native American culture in the States. Like it's definitely an improvement, definitely better. Yeah. So Nice to have.
Mm. And so how do you see that? I mean, my question is, I want to know about their beliefs and their values, and if you incorporate any like rituals and ceremonies in your space, but mainly I just want to know like what do they believe in? What do they value?
Yeah. Yeah, the Maori worldview, not that I'm an expert either, but they were seafaring people, number one. So many things have to do with water and the cosmos
Mm,
and the skies and legends. So they're very big into stories and legend as teacher. And so even the islands here that we look out on, there's a legend of this lake Fakatipu, where a giant is said to have been quelled in this kind of romantic quarrel, um, where the body of the giant fell. And if you look down on the map of the South Island of New Zealand, you'll see this lake that we're near. It looks kind of like the shape of a human body, like laying on its side. So kind of that kind of
mm,
Z shape on its side. And 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 it's said that this giant, when he fell and kind of made this imprint on the land, that his heart still beats underneath the lake, and the beating of the heart makes the lake rise and fall. And so this
mm.
is one of the very few lakes in the world where it's big enough and deep enough that it actually has a rising and falling tide. And so they were, obviously deeply connected to nature. And yeah, I've gotten taste of it. Aroha doesn't do. I personally, the way I've decided to be with it is that we work with New Zealanders, so I have retreat leaders who have Maori ancestry and who speak the language and who really beautifully weave in their own natural way. They'll use Te Reo Maori, the language. They'll use it in yoga, and they'll say blessings at the table, and they'll kind of do things, but it just comes naturally of them. I
Mhm.
haven't actually structured anything around, hey, we always do this or we always do that, because it just felt like a little bit, I didn't want to make it feel canned or forced at all. So I've always just let it happen naturally. And we've done beautiful sessions with Maori elders who have come and led our team to kind of just educate the team a little bit. But I just kind of let it be a little bit through osmosis, I guess. Just that we're all being experienced. We're all kind of, if you're drawn to it, great. Go study and go check it out and weave it in however you like. But I would say it's quite organic in the way that it unfolds.
I like that. That's cool and
Yeah,
different. Like you said,
yeah.
it just happens.
Hmm.
Hmm. So, oh wow, we've been talking for 50 minutes.
We've
Didn't
done
even
well.
feel it. Yeah. I think we've gone through all of the questions. So I'll
I
just
wonder,
ask
can
maybe
you hear
like,
that sound or no?
yeah, but
That's not too
it's
loud, is it? Okay.
no, it's fine.
Okay, let me know and I can always, there's just somebody in the workshop.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what's great about these unedited sessions. It's like real life.
Boom.
Dogs barking in the background, the airplanes are flying by. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
fine. Okay, so can you share a powerful story of transformation that you have witnessed at Aroha?
Oh, yeah. I can share one of maybe even a couple of quick ones. One of them was very recent. There are kind of two different. I'll just kind of give you two different color shades of the same kind of thing. So sometimes I have people that come and they are very new to this world, and they come in maybe partially guarded, and so basically, I had one of these characters. He was a gentleman. He just felt out of his depths. He's not a yogi. He doesn't do all of these things, and he just seemed to kind of hold and be a little. Can I? Is that no? Should we
So,
just ignore? Ignore. Okay, all right. You're good at this. I like it. So he basically was cruising through the week, and we got to the very last day. And often it takes, like some people come and they're just having an amazing time on day one. Some people it takes till day two to kind of release some of the weight. Some people it's day three, it's kind of you're going through. And this guy was like right until the very end, and we get him into the closing circle, and we're all just sharing a little bit of how the experience was. And he goes, you guys have decluttered my shit. And then that was his comment of the whole retreat. And I just loved it. He spoke like just so like it made so much sense. It's like that is the experience, just decluttering all the crap and just like coming home to yourself. And so I love those kind of stories, which are just very, very real and raw. Um, I've had, I guess, another one that I think, and these happen as a sprinkle. It's like a gift when it happens to all of us, really. But every once in a while, I experience what I see as true awakenings in people, and it often comes with like tears and just hearts, both of ours. Sometimes people are sharing with me, and it's like as soon as I kind of connect with what's happening for them, it's like my heart just goes both. And I was it was on the last day, and I was sharing with a lady who has basically a history of trauma, and comes from a culture that has been oppressed, and we were there, and she started sharing with me just this absolute opening that was happening inside her. Almost brings tears to my eyes now, and it brought tears to her eyes in that moment. But it was just kind of this awareness of the clarity that we are and that we always have, this part of us that really actually can never be traumatized and can never be broken and can never be taken, and is always there for us. Sometimes I get to witness that deepest of deep gifts where people remember that that's who they are, and it's just like flowing through their veins and through their cells, and it's like, gosh, the most beautiful thing I can ever imagine. And it's really why I got into this work is because I started to have these little moments myself, and I was like, what is going on? And my entire, world changed, and I still to this day, this is what I really think it's all about. Like, sure, we can biohack, and sure, we can measure our sleep, and sure, we can work at like the pillars of health and all of this stuff. But I actually think at the very, very center of all of it, and of the utmost of importance, is that we really understand who we are, and how these protective parts, these protective layers of us engage with the world, and sometimes feel criticized and sometimes feel not enough. And they're there to support us and protect us and make sure we live well and achieve what we need to achieve. But holding all of that, and just behind all of that is this incredible gift of awareness. And when we connect with that, even just a few times through our day, through a breath, or through a sunrise, we come home to the biggest of the big, and the wholest of the whole. So yeah, I would never, if this whole place burned down, I would find some other way to do something in this space. There's no question. I would still be practicing and facilitating and sharing in some place. Maybe I'll come, you can come here, and maybe I'll end up in
Yes.
Mexico.
No, we have to. I want to go there when you're there, and then you
Okay,
can
cool.
come here while I'm here, and then we can switch after that.
Yeah, good. That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, so last thing, I would like you to ask a question. I've been asking this to everybody. So if there was such a thing as the retreat gods, or like the retreat expert in the world, what one question would you ask them?
Oh, wow, what a neat question. Ooh, the one retreat god. I like how we mask that retreat god as like the one. Um, what would I ask it? Wow.
Hmm.
Maybe, it would be interesting. I would ask it, where am I still blind? What is it that I don't see? Like that's what I would want to know. Because every generation you see it happens over and over again, like your parents didn't know what they didn't know, and their parents didn't know what they didn't know. And it's like you can't, and I sometimes reflect on that. I'm like, right now, there are things that I literally, I see them 0%, and that there are aspects of me that would be holding me back in doing what I'm trying to do and being who I want to be for my family and for my friends and for my business. And I would ask that omnipotent being, um, yeah, what is it that I don't see?
Hmm.
It might blow my mind. Maybe that's dangerous. If it was willing to actually show me what I didn't see, I'd probably incinerate and just go up in a cloud of smoke. But it would be very
Maybe,
cool to hear what it had to say.
maybe you'll know what it is in the next 10 years, and then you'll be ready for it then.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Another
I've
10.
always thought, like I'm not a Christian, but I'm like, man, imagine just sitting down to lunch with Jesus, being like, Jesus, you want to grab a panini? Let's let's go have a panini. It's on me. And just like have a chat
Oh,
with
too
Jesus and be
cool.
like, Jesus, really, how is it, man? Tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was very involved in Christianity at one point, and what I took from that was just love. Like what you Aroha, that's it. It's just love.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just we make things complicated,
Yeah.
but
Totally.
it's really not.
No.
Okay.
In its essence, it's not. Yeah. And then we get to practice every day, remembering that. Yeah. Mm.
You're such an amazing human being. I'm so grateful that we're having this chat.
Yeah, you too, Crystal. I love this work you're doing, by the way. I was really switched on to the idea of like, bringing under one podcast, all these voices of wellness, because it is such a beautiful community of like-minded, but also very, colorful, and a kaleidoscope really of minds and practices and ways of doing things. So yeah, really,
Yeah,
I really like what you're doing. This will be a really nice
thank
resource
you.
for people. Yeah.
Thank you. I just I give it away, I receive it, and I give it away.